Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is going to be my review for Reign, Season 2, Episode 5, Blood for Blood. And this episode, while I really enjoyed it, I thought it was a really good episode. There was way too much going on this episode. I mean, we had way too many events going on between the tension between the Catholics and the Protestants, and then Greer's wedding, and then the whole thing with Kenna and like that sex journal. There was just too much going on, and I wasn't really as interested in this episode as I wanted to be. I really wanted to love this episode. There were a lot of parts where I'm like, I really wanted to say this is the best episode of the season, but it really wasn't, because there were a lot of problems with this episode. There were a lot of things that I felt could have been cut out, and you know, this episode definitely had some tone issues and things like that. And that was definitely a problem, because, I really wanted to like it, and I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. But let's just get to it, because overall, I did enjoy this episode, and let's get to it. So Castleroy listens to a man talk about religion, and then a man bursts in and says it looks like a church service. The man asks why a highborn squire is in with Protestants, and Castleroy tells him to stop, but the guy punches him, knocks him down. They throw a torch in the middle of the barn, and everyone runs out yelling it's not clear if Castleroy gets out or not. So I thought that was really cool. Why did they just randomly bring back the intro for the show? Like, that was really weird. We hadn't seen the intro in so long, and they just randomly bring it back. That's so weird. So Mary then tells Francis she won't ask how much money he lost gambling with Bash, since that's not where he really was. He admits he was with the baby, and Mary tells him she's not fragile and says she can get pregnant. I was happy that they did have a conversation about this, because Mary just all of a sudden seemed happy. I'm like, seriously? She doesn't suffer anything from losing her child? And, you know, she basically tells him that she can get pregnant again, and he shouldn't hide his love for his son. And, he tells her he loves and believes in her, and they start to kiss, but are interrupted. And Bash and Leith come in, and they say there was another attack on Protestants, and Francis sends them to go find out who started the fire and arrest them. So Mary talks to Greer about her wedding day, and in my opinion, guys, this wedding storyline, I really do like it. I think it's really good, but I wish that Greer and Castleroy would have gotten married in the mid-season finale. I just feel they should have. So Greer says she isn't sure about the big wedding, and Castleroy's youngest daughter, Gemma, runs up, and she introduces her to the ladies, and Kenna says those are her children now. And Bash, Leith, and some others have found riderless horses, and they think it's the men who burned the barn. And he tells some men to get the attackers and bring them to the castle. He tells Leith to find the victims. They ride up, and Leith immediately spots Castleroy. He asks to speak to them alone, and Leith tells him to get out of the woods, and lies to the guard and says he knows them and they aren't the victims. So Kenna hears a noise and finds two of the maids having sex behind a sheet curtain. They try to hide a book, and Kenna tells them to hand it over. She says the book is smut and says she's going to confiscate it to punish them since reading it to their unsavory public sex display. And she reads the trotty words and walks away with it smiling. So Francis is thinking about his father's jousting accident. I thought this was interesting. He goes to talk to the nanny he had fired, but Mary shows up and says he's neat about the Protestant situation. I can't say that. Protestant. He tells Mary to go in his steed, and he talks to Caroline, who of course is the possessed nanny, and he doesn't know why she's there. And he asks if she placed the surgeon's implement on his bed, and he says he saw her outside her door, and she says she keeps waking up places she doesn't remember. He tells her go to the infirmary for rest and to not tell anyone else what she told him. So in the throne room, the Protestant minister and survivors are there and have brought the body of the young man who was beaten to death by Catholic thugs. And the minister asks for justice, and Louis says the boy is his sister's son and tells Mary they murdered his nephew. Now, the show wants us to really feel for this, but I really can't, because there hasn't really been too much for Louis to do. I mean, I know a lot of people have been complaining about this, and I, myself included. Louis is a pointless character, okay? He's there to basically be in Francis' storyline. He basically isn't really doing much in the show. He's in every single storyline, and I'm not exactly a fan of it. I really don't. I like his character. I'm not saying that. I really do like his character, but I would like for Louis to get his own storyline, because he really doesn't have one right now. So I am not exactly a fan of the way they're handling that. So Francis says the throne will not tolerate violence for any reasons, and Louis asks if he will condemn or condone Protestants, and Francis says he's in no rush to import open religious struggle in France, and Louis says the thugs killed him to send him a message. He says he's a Catholic, but his brother was converted, and his sister as well, and Francis promises him justice. So Kenna leaves through the book, and Lola shows up, and she tells her that it's a sex journal about many of the normal men and women who came through court, and I honestly did not care about this plot. Basically, she wants Lola to find her perfect man, basically, because, you know, Kenna has Bash, you know, Mary has Francis. She wants her to find someone. Greer has Castleroy. Lola's really the only one single, and she wants her to find someone. Now, I understand why, but, like, it just didn't fit with the rest of the episode, in my opinion. It didn't. The wedding and Lola storyline did not fit with the rest of the episode. The episode should have just been Catholics versus Protestants. I would have been fine with that. So Bash is the men who attack the Protestants, but Narcise is there advocating on their behalf, and Narcisse has a stable boy that's been injured and is saying that Emile, who's Louis' nephew, attacked him, and he says the attack on Emile was justified and plays the Catholic card. The Catholic men call themselves Francis's loyal subjects and bow to him and ask that they be released, and Ken is trying to find the mystery man when Catherine comes up and sees him with the book. And she basically tells Lola about this guy, Eris, and Catherine asks if Ken is moving on from her bastard husband, and she says no, because obviously Catherine betrayed Bash, wants nothing to do with him, and Mary then finds Louis, blah, 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 you know, she tells Lola that about Eris and everything. Really didn't care much about that. So Mary finds Louis and tells him that Francis did not release the men and sent Bash to investigate what really happened. Louis says he's already looked around, says no one knows the boy. Louis shows her the mark of the 3 Dark Riders. He says they set him upon him a few nights ago. He says they are nothing but paid brutes, and Mary's shocked at this, that he thinks that Catholic exterminists are responsible for this. And he says with the mark, if anyone lifts his shirt, they can kill him as being marked as a demon. So that's really interesting. So Louis says he thinks these men want France to explode. Sure enough, there's trouble in a village, and Protestants attack Catholics because they thought Francis was investigating Emile, the victim, rather than the murderer. So Francis says they have to also arrest the Protestant attackers, and Catherine tells her that no one will appreciate this no matter how he even handled he's trying to be. He ignores her. And Mary and Louis go down to the dungeon, and she asks if they found the boy already wounded or hurt themselves. And Louis says they sent for a man from the village, and Mary tells one man to tell the truth or face drawing and quartering. And Jerome says it was Luke's idea when they found a boy who had been kicked in the head by a horse. And Luke says Emile deserved what he got for being a Protestant. So Louis goes to strike him, but stops at the last minute. And that was definitely really intense. So then we get this really weird scene that had nothing to do with the rest of the episode. The ladies complain about the heat. They talk about the book the day before Greer's wedding. And basically they all just go into a pool and everything. I mean, it was a good scene, but it didn't fit with the rest of this episode. Here's the thing. I like the friendship between the girls. I do. I like the friendship between Kenna, Greer, and Lola. But we really did not need to see it in this episode. Just like we didn't need to see Greer's wedding. And just like we didn't need to see Lola's subplot. I just did not think it was needed, in my opinion. So, basically, Leith finds Greer on her way back to the castle and says she knows she looks like a drowned rat. And he asks her if Castleroy has spoken to her, and she says no. He says there is something she needs to know about her future husband, which is a secret. She asks why he's telling her, and he says for more than one reason. He tells her to ask him about the morning before she marries him. He says to do it for herself, not him. So, Caroline is leering at women, who of course is the possessed nanny. She then goes to sit at the throne, and Francis has her discreetly dragged off from the infirmary, but Narcisse sees this, and Lola has found Lord Eris, and Kenna encourages her to go talk to him before the women. He's talking to take him off to her chambers, and Francis talks to the nanny, and his father answers. So, in my opinion, I think what this is trying to show is that Caroline is going to be almost fully possessed. I think she is going to be fully possessed soon. And basically, he's trying to figure out how he died, and Henry says that's why he left him the piece of wood that was embedded in his eye. Francis reminds him that he murdered many, many people, and Francis says he plotted to kill him just so he could have Mary, and Henry asks if that's why he killed him, and Francis says yes, and then says it almost destroyed him to kill him. So, basically, I really like this storyline, because Francis has this secret bottled up inside of him, and he hasn't told anyone that he was the one that killed the king. Nobody knows that, and I think that definitely is very interesting. So Narcisse is there, and Narcisse finds out. And that was awesome. I thought that was awesome. One of my favorite parts of the episode by far was when Narcise found out. He's like, he wishes he had not seen what he just saw. And Francis orders Caroline held under lock and key and then threatens Narcise. He tells Francis that regicide is a heinous crime punishable by death, even for a king or queen. And Francis tells him Mary won't know and never will. And Narcisse makes it clear that as a Catholic lord, he won't help his enemies. So he kneels and asks Francis to trust him or kill him and says those are his only options. And that was definitely really crazy. So Francis stays his sword hand, and Narcisse says he's not his father after all. Francis tells him he could have been if given a reason. Castleroy tells Greer that he was at the Protestant service that morning. He says he's been looking for meaning in life. She is scared of what him converting could do to him and his children. He tells her that he loves her but won't give up on his beliefs. He says if she ends this now, he will still fund her sister's dowries. And he tells her if she does marry him, they will be full partners except this disagreement over faith. And he tells her that he hopes he will see her at the altar tomorrow. And Mary finds Francis and asks if he's hiding. And she tells him that Louis's nephew is murdered, and says she thinks he was right about equal justice. She wants the Catholic rioters hanged, and he tells her he'll rule in the morning. So a soldier comes to tell him that Narcisse released the possessed nanny and said it was on Francis' orders, which makes sense because they want to cover up the fact that Francis killed his father. So Francis comes to his chambers and asks if he released Caroline to protect her, and Narcisse admits that Caroline has been play acting and was in his pay. And I thought that was an awesome twist. Francis says some generals told him that he was plotting against his father, so he investigated, and Narcisse admits he doesn't have enough evidence to convict him, but has enough to weaken him. So Narcisse basically knew all along, which I think was an amazing twist. I love that, and basically Caroline was never possessed. She was just play acting, which does kind of make sense, because if you think about it, it's really weird that the nanny just randomly got possessed. It definitely makes sense that basically she was a spy for Narcisse. I think it's an amazing twist, and probably the best twist of the season so far. This episode does have that. Even though this was a very lackluster episode, it did have a very good twist. So Francis asks what he wants. Narcisse says he wants what he had with Henry, a ruler who listened to him, and he says he and Mary will ruin this country and drive it to civil war. And Narcisse tells him to release the Catholic prisoners and says to tell Mary he changed his mind. He tells Francis that no one will ever believe that she wasn't in on the plot to kill his father. He says he doubts that's what he and Mary have in mind for their future together. So Mary rails at Francis over his decision to release the Catholic attackers. He says he hears her opinion but disagrees, and she says the Protestants will rebel, but he says he's already made a decision and is releasing it now. She says she thought they would rule together, but he says sometimes he has to be king first. She asked him to tell her what's wrong, but he walks away without explanation. So then basically we have this scene of Greer and Castleroy getting married. Not really much to say there. It was a nice wedding and everything. And Lola ends up meeting up with Arius and everything. Not really much to talk about there. And you see the Castleroy and Greer, they're happily married now. You know, she twirls her new stepchildren, and that was really good. It just didn't fit with the rest of the episode, in my opinion. It really didn't. There's possibly going to be a relation between Narcisse and Lola, which I am not happy about at all. I do not want Lola to be in a relation with Narcisse. I think that's really stupid if that's where the show's going. I'm just not a fan of that. Just didn't feel with the rest of the episode. However, the end of the episode, I really enjoyed, definitely. I thought the end of the episode was definitely really, really good. So, Mary finds Francis and says that she loves him and understands he had to do what he had to do. She reminds him that the men who released attackers, the nephew of his cousin, she demands to know why he made this decision. She says he's been so distant and acting haunted. He says he needs peace and quiet, and she says he needs to trust her, but says not everything can be solved and done or changed. He says there are things he can't tell her to protect her. She asks what could endanger her so much and involves his son's nanny and him sulking around the castle. She asks if he's worried she won't be able to bear a child. He asks if that brings her closer to know that her failure disappoints him more than words can say. He decides to crush her instead of telling her that he killed his father. He doesn't tell her the truth, which I think she definitely is going to find out. So she's devastated but says she did ask him for the truth. She says she doesn't need to hear any more from him and leaves. So he basically just lied to her, and this is not going to end well at all because I definitely feel that Narcisse is somehow going to get Mary involved in this. Narcisse is going to ruin this definitely for Francis. I really like the tension between Narcisse and Francis now. I definitely really enjoyed that. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I personally did not really like the Greer stuff. I just felt it did not fit with the rest of the episode. if there was any time for them to get married, I'd say the mid-season finale. That's when they should get married. I really love the twist, as I said, of Francis and Narcisse. I think that's really cool. With Caroline, I'm wondering what's going to happen with Caroline, definitely. We'll have to see definitely what's going to happen there, because now we know that Caroline was actually a spy for Narcisse, so I thought that was really awesome. Do you really care about Lola and Eris? I didn't really care much about that. I thought that was kind of just, I didn't really care so much about their plot. I thought it was just okay overall. Honestly, this episode for me, my only issue is that I really wish the episode was just Protestants versus Catholics. I would have been fine with that. I think that would have been really cool. And also, I really wish that we actually get something for Louis to do. Louis right now is just there. He doesn't really have much to do. He's in every plot. He doesn't really have his own individual plot. Yes, his nephew is murdered, but I don't really care because I don't know that much about him. We don't really know much about Louis. All we know is that he was with, that Francis found him, and he's been with them ever since. That's really all we know. There's not much else we really know, and sorry, once again, there was my dad in the background, but there's really not much else we really know there, and I really want to find out more about Louis. That's really my only problem there, is I want to find out more about his character. But overall, I thought this was a good episode. I wish it could have been better. I wish I could have said this was the best episode of the season, because it does have an awesome reveal. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for episode 6, and then I will be catched up to Reign. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.